Hello everybody, this is Jack B1024 and welcome to episode 19 of our dynamic Factorio Let's Play. Now before we get started, you may notice that the network we've got here looks a lot different to what it looked like at the end of episode 18. And that's because there was actually an episode between the previous one and this one. However, at the end of my recording of the previous session, I thought about the circuit that I'd made and decided that it isn't actually all that great. It's got a few issues with it, so I'll actually be taking it down and doing a different design. If you want to see me actually build this setup, there's a hidden video on my channel. The link is in the description where you can actually see basically that episode. Because it was all recorded, but it's not going to be used, and so I thought, better than spending your time watching an episode where I go, okay, and so at the end of that I'm going to tear it all down, I would just put it there as a hidden video, so if you actually want to see it, you can go to the description and see it there. Yeah, the main issues with this setup, if we talk about the one that we were doing in episode 18 as well, it's kind of connected. The main issue is that the time it takes to actually process all the stations is, if you do it in the big O notation, it's ON squared, which basically means, say it took 1 second as a base time. If we had 4 stations, it would take, N is 4, so 4 squared is 16, so 16 seconds. If we had 10 stations, it would take, N is 10, 10 squared is 100, so 100 seconds. And if you had 200 stations, I'll actually calculate how long that would take. It'd be 40,000 seconds, or about 11 hours. So obviously this design's not going to work. It's not very expandable. And that's why I've decided to go against it. So instead we're going to be doing a few other circuits. So I think to get started, I've got some horrible drawings in GIMP. Which one to start with? Let's start with, this one. So here we have 2 memory cells and we have that whole setup. This is what our new setup's going to look like. So instead, each station is going to send its request either to one of 2 FIFO, which are first in, first out queues. So these queues, the first request that they get is the first one that they'll serve. We'll have one for stations that are requesting items, and we have one for stations that can supply items. The output of these both go to a single circuit, which will be set up to check, have we got a station requesting items and have we got the same items able to be given to it? And if so, we'll just set up a train to go between the station that can give items and then to go to the station that can take those items. So we'll have a circuit to do that, and then it'll send that off to a train memory bank, which will store train, 52 maybe, let's say. Train 52 is going to the iron mine to pick up items and then going to processing bay 15 to deposit them there. So that's how the overarching picture will look. Now we'll go to a more nicer diagram that I made. And this is how each station is going to work out. So if we go, here we go. If we go up here to how the station's currently worked out, we have a state that goes to each station, checking, is this currently asking what I have? If yes, do I have items to go out? If yes, send that signal back. So that's how that's working. I think that was all in episode 18, because that should be this memory bank. So you should be able to remember that. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually change that. So instead of being one state which will ask every station, hey, what do you have, 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 so on and so forth. Instead, each station will be able to say, okay, I have a full load of items, I'm going to send this to the FIFO queue, or I need items, I'm going to send the request to the FIFO queue, and it will have a circuit set up that will check, does it seem like my message got to the FIFO queue properly, without being tainted, I guess, by other stations sending messages. This way, our FIFO queues can basically respond to the stations instead of asking the stations what's going on. And so if we had, say, 1,000 stations, but most of them are just doing nothing, we're not checking each of those 1,000 stations, saying, hey, are you doing anything we need to know about? Are you doing anything we need to know about? Instead, the station will say, hey, FIFO, send me a train, please. Or, hey, FIFO, I've got a train load of stuff ready when you need me. So how will that work? Let's just pop open this one. Yep. So the send is basically a memory cell that each station will have that'll say, do I have data that I need to send out? And it'll send it over this red line here. So this red line is connected to every single station. That's why I did a double-headed arrow, because not only are we sending a signal out, but every other station could also be sending a signal out on this line. Now, it'll be passed to a 2-tick delay, and that's just to make it sync up with these two combinators here. The blue line is what I'm using instead of green wires, just so it's easier to understand, especially if you're colorblind. I believe red and blue are better colors than red and green. So we've got each times -1 output to each, so we're just negating it, and we're subtracting 1 from that signal. And then we're going to add these two signals up. So let's say we sent a signal of iron is 100. We got a 2-tick delay, and here we're getting a value of -100, -101. So this is going to get a value of iron is 100 on the red line, and iron is -101 on the blue line. And because -101 plus 100 is -1, there's going to be something less than 0. So it will send a message off to a counter cell, and it will send a message off to this pink line, which goes into the send to actually send a second command. Now, the reason for that is that this circuit is set up slightly differently to what you may expect, just because we have to deal with the fact that other stations may be sending stuff too. So I'll get to that in a sec. Now, if any wasn't less than 0, that means that whatever this station sent, another station sent the same signal. So let's say in the same tick, we're sending iron is 100, and another station is sending iron is 300. So on the red line, we would have 400 iron. On the blue line here, we would have -101. And 400 minus 101 is 299. So nothing would be less than 0. In that case, what we'll do is we go to this second set of combinators. Now these any less than 0, there's actually a bunch more combinators than they've got here. This is just the simplified flowchart. And we've got this second one here. Now what this will do is check, basically, is the request that we made less than half of the request that every station made. So if you think, yeah, let's say we had two stations sending items. So we have a different station saying 400 and we're saying 100. So that means combined we're at 500. So what we want to check is, did we request less than 250, which is 500 divided by 2. If we did, then that means that we should send a request as soon as we can again. If we were above 250, that means that there was a different station that requested less items than us, or a lower number, so we're going to wait a while, basically. We wait for an opening. And that way, basically, every time we go through to this combinator here, we basically halve the number of stations-ish. You about halve the number of stations that are requesting items, because half of them should be about above the number divided by 2, and half should be below the number divided by 2. And so you can just basically split that off until you've got only one station that's requesting items. So it'll send off a resend if we were below the halfway mark. This isn't actually how this works. This is slightly different because I worked out that that wouldn't actually work that way, but the less than half still works. It's just not done with an each times 2 to each. Now the wait for opening, actually that should have a red arrow into it. So, whoop, I'm clicking on the wrong window. Okay, let's get one of these red arrows. Where are you? Okay. Duplicate the layer, move it over here, and let's rotate it around. Okay. So So this wait for opening, it gets the red signal, which is the same red that's being piped over here. And what it is checking for basically is in the very last, in this tick, was the signals that were sent such that every single station would have satisfied this condition here. Because let's say we want to send iron and we need to wait because we sent maybe 400 iron and the other one sent 100. So we'll wait for a tick where every station is passed to check. And if that's the case, then we'll say, oh, okay, there's an opening, we can go now on that very same tick. And so that's how that works. It waits for an opening, and when it gets an opening, it will resend this. So it's just going to wait until it gets to that condition. That's essentially how that works. Now, be back in a second when I'm over in the testing world. Okay, so here's my testing world that I built the whole circuit on. And so here's basically that flowchart as an actual circuit. And there's a little bit extra down here, which is how the FIFO queue actually works. Well, adding items to the FIFO queue works. So I think the easiest way to go through this is that I'm just going to rebuild this circuit in this testing world so you can see how it works. So what we have here is we have a normal pulse generator. Let's just make sure we have plenty of items because I don't want to run out. There we go. Okay, so we've got a normal pulse generator. That's going to be our signal. Now we need to send this to our memory cell, which is here, and it's just the normal memory cell. You know, red signal is 0, output everything's input count. Let's just copy. How much do I want to get? Wait, what are these two doing? Wait. Throw 0. Okay, yep, that's right. I remember how those two work now. So we'll need a green signal to there. So this is our memory cell, as I said. Now these two basically set up our very first send pulse. We basically make like a pulse generator, but instead of sending through the pulse, we send through the red signal, which is our send command with a value of 1. And that gets sent to this, which is the send combinator. Now let me see if I can work out how much to copy now. Actually, I might just go through the whole thing. That's probably easier. So this will send it whenever it gets a red is 0. Yep, whenever it gets a red signal. It's got a red of -1 on the constant combinator on its input side. So whenever red is 0, that is, we're getting a red signal in, we will send out everything we've got inside us, which is from this memory cell. Now that goes off to, well, this light, which just lets you visually see that it's sending some data, goes to the red line, which is the one that would go to all the stations, and it goes to the green line, which goes to these 3 combinators. Let's see what we have. So this one here, actually no, it doesn't go to this one on the green line. Sorry, this one only connects to the red line. So this is our 2-tick pulse. This is the first, our 2-tick delay, I should say. So this is our first tick of our delay, and the second tick of the delay is actually set up here. I actually had to fix it up because of how this all works. Here's our combinator that will negate it, and here's the one that will subtract 1 from it. Now our second tick of our pulse, yep, here we go. Let's just go through linearly, I guess. So we've got our first tick of our delay here, which goes into this decider combinator. Now at the same tick as that is passing the value through, this decider combinator here checks, are we sending anything? If we are, send a red signal of 1. So it basically can tell us, oh, in the last tick we sent something. And so this one will check if the red signal is greater than 0, that is, we're sending something, it'll output everything on its input count. So that's the second tick of the delay. Now because we don't want that red signal tainting our checks, we have this thing which is just negating the red signal, and it's in line. Now here's the thing to check if anything's less than 0, and if it is, we send a pulse, because that means that whatever signal we sent wasn't changed by any of the other stations. And it goes off to here, which goes and sends the signal again. Now what else do we have? Yeah, that goes up to here, which is the next thing. Now this is basically the reverse, so this checks if everything is greater than 0. So it's the opposite of this. This is anything less than 0, this is everything greater than 0. And it will send a green signal of 1. Now the green signal of 1 basically will reset our counter. We have a counter up here, and it will reset it. And the counter set to reset whenever green is not 0. So that's that one. Now at the same time as this is doing this check, this one here is passing through the red value that we got from back here. So our negated red value. So it is also checking basically, are we in the same time that we should be sending data off? Now it'll light up this light. So this light will light up when we're sending data on the tick that this thing's going to be checking. If red is -1, that is, we're sending data, output what our green count is. Because as you can see right now, the light is on, because everything greater than 1, or even everything greater than 0, if you've actually got no signals, it is true, even though that sort of doesn't make sense because we've got nothing being checked, but that's how that works. So this thing basically checks, are we doing a write to the main line at this moment? If so, then we actually care about if anything's greater than 0. And that'll connect to this light, so this light will flash green when this cell actually resets. This cell also gets an input from this 1 tick delay, which comes from our anything less than 0 circuit. So when anything's less than 0 and it needs to send another pulse, it'll wait 1 tick to sync it up with this one, and then it'll go into this memory cell, which may be reset if this thing failed. Now that just goes to, that's just a pulse generator. Can't remember right now why that's a times 10, but it just is basically a delay. I think that's for this thing. Yeah, that's to reset this. And I'll get onto what that does in a second. So now let's go back to here. So we've got our send, our 2 tick delay, our h times -1, output h, our h -1 go to h, the any, and the counter. So now what we need to deal with is the second any less than 0, which is checking out of the total that was sent on the red line for our particular signal, so iron ore, say for example, was our signal less than half of the total? And if so, we need to send again. So the way this is done is that we get, now where you should be the red line if I remember correctly. Let's go circuit network numbers. Yeah, so it's getting 60, good. So this one gets the input from the red line, which is all the circuits, and it will halve it and negate it as well. And so what we're doing here is basically, if you remember this, we had negating -1 going to here. What we've done on this side, instead of doing it like this, we're actually getting the red value, halving it and negating it, and passing in the normal blue value into here. Yeah, so we get the blue value from here. Well, the green, I guess you would say. So the value that we send out gets negated again, just because it was already negative over here, and we pass it into here. So while this is checking was our signal greater than the total, basically, because we're negating our signal and not the total and adding them together. This one's checking, is half the total greater than our value? If so, we were less than half. And it'll send out its pulse. Now, you would be, yep. Just checking if there's anything else that needs to be said on this part. It'll just send out its pulse. It goes to a 1 tick delay, and then that gets sent over here. This has another 1 tick delay, and it has this decider combinator, which just makes sure that the send signal is only ever 1, and also works as a 1 tick delay. Now the reason for all these 1 tick delays is we need this circuit to be tick perfect. If anything is just 1 tick off, it'll actually break how the FIFO stuff works. That's why there's just all these 1 tick delays scattered throughout it, to make sure everything happens at the same time. So, with that, there we go. We've got our send, we've got our 2 tick delay, we've got this any check, the counter done, this any check, so all we need now is the wait for opening. And so to do that, that is basically this whole circuit on the right half here is our checking for an opening. So how does that work is we check firstly if our red signal is less than 0. Now this is getting its input from this arithmetic combinator over here, which sends out the red of -1 when we're doing our write on that tick. So it waits 2 ticks just to make it in sync with everything else. So the input to this is -1 on the tick that we're doing our write. But that's not the only output from this. It also gets the red value from this combinator multiplied by 10, just to make sure that it's definitely above 0. It could really just be multiplied by 1, but why not go with 10? So if this check passed, then this check will fail, because this will pass at a 1, which will make the input to this 10 minus 1. So that'll be 9. At the same time, this second any check also gets piped into it. So if it passes, it also fails. And it just does a 1. So it actually, this could just be a 1 here. So basically what this is doing is saying, is this the tick that we're writing to the main line? And did both of our checks for any fail? If so, output that we need to now wait. That goes to this memory cell, which just, as long as it's getting told to wait, it will keep being told to wait. And that's how that one works. Now that goes to this 1 tick delay, which then goes to this decider combinator. The 1 tick delay also has a red signal of -1, so it's actually more of a gate. And this checks if red 0, output all our inputs. So, if we are waiting, this thing will output a red value of 0. So this thing will basically enable the main line value to go into this circuit, which is our checking for the condition that we are free on this tick. So how do we know if it's free? Well, there's 2 conditions that we can know if it's free. Actually, I forgot to mention one important thing. Every time you send a signal from a station, you need to include the train signal train at station signal. Either that or destination, right? Still trying to decide which one to send. But you need to send one of them. Now that's important because we can use that to tell if all the signals went through without changing. So let's go with 3 combinators here. Touch them up to a light. And there we go. So this combinator will make it send, say, iron, 16. This combinator will make it send iron, 55. And then it has to send the train signal. And this one sends the train signal and it sends copper, or 72, whatever. So that's an example of 3 stations all sending their signal at the same time. Now, if we look at this medium electric pole, The first thing is we can't tell if we're getting a signal of iron 71 or if we're getting a signal of two different iron values that are merged together. But because every station is sending out that train stop signal, we can actually use that as part of our way to tell what our signals are. So we see we've got two unique signals, but we've got three stations that are sending signals. Now the only way that can happen is if two of the stations are sending the same signal, which they are. So if we turn this station off, you will see we have two different signals and we're getting told that two stations are sending signals. So in this case we know that we're perfectly fine because we've got two signals and two stations sent them, so no station would have been the same signal as a different station. In this case we know there's an issue because we've got two unique signals, but the three stations sent a signal. And if we turn that one off, we've got one signal, but two stations sent it. So that's why each station will send this signal train at station. And we actually use that to check if it's fine for us to send on this tick. So what we'll do is we check and just see why there's the 2-tick delay. Why do you have destination number is 0? That should be that signal. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now that I've remembered how this works perfectly, we get each signal and we change it to a 1. So if we take that over here to this circuit, everything greater than 0, make it a 1. We can just look here. And let's turn these all on. So this way we can see that we've got on the output, we've got 1 for our train to stop, and 1 for our copper ore, and 1 for our iron ore. Now the next step is that we get each input, we multiply it by -1, and we output it as the train signal at station. So that means for this we would be, let's just put this motor here, give it the exact same setup. You can see we're getting a value of -3. Now the second thing we do, second thing we do is we add a 2-tick delay. For the same reason as all our 2-tick delays, just to make sure that they're in sync. Now let's go with the pole there. Okay, so on this pole we can see that we've got on the green signal, which is our 2-tick delay, we've got our two inputs and we've got station is -3. On our red line we've got station is +3, I should say. And on the red line we've got station is -3. So if we add those two together, we know that station is 0, and that is not the condition we want. Yeah. Now if we turn this one off, we'll notice that station is still -3 on the red line, but station is 2 on the green line. So we're getting 2 stations and station is -3. Now the reason it's -3 is because it's counted in this. So really what this is doing is it's outputting a train station signal train at station value equal to the number of unique signals, which will be equal to basically the number of unique signals plus unique items being sent plus 1, because we're going to have the signal train at station signal. So as long as this is a value, let's go, here we go, we'll put these both into this combinator. And you can see now that our train signal value is -1. And that means that the number of stations being sent is equal to the number of unique signals, ignoring the train signal train at station signal. That is a mouthful. Now, in that case, that means that There we go. We're in a proper case over here where none of our signals are interfering with each other. Where they are interfering, our signal train at station signal will be either 0 or it will be greater than 0 for how many stations are colliding. One less than the number of stations that are colliding. So the first time we know that we're free is if our signal train at station is less than 0. Because that means that the number of signals we have that are unique equal the number of resource signals we had. One second. Because that means that the number of stations that we're sending data on the line is equal to the number of unique signals we have, as I said over there. And if that's the case, then we know each one is sending a different signal. Now the other condition only comes from this 2-tick delay. So it's only from the green line. And it's just checking, is our train at station signal equal to 0? If it's equal to 0, then that means that no stations are sending a signal at this very tick. As you can see, it's 0 here. If no stations are sending a signal, then of course this tick is free. So they're the two conditions that we're checking for. Yep, then all we want to do is we want to get this red value to be less than 0. Well, 0 or lower, because that will reset it here. So we just get our two red values here, multiply them by -10, output it as green. Now you get a red signal from here, yep. And the reason we output it as green is because we want a different signal here, so that on the input to this can get what our current state is. So this is basically checking, are we currently free, which we are, and are we currently waiting for it to be free, which we're not. That's why this is outputting 0. But if we were, this would be a value of 1, and so we would be getting a value of -10 or 20, depending on. Should only really be -10 because these shouldn't both be true at the same time. So we'll get a value of -10, and that will reset this decider combinator. And that's the memory cell to check, are we waiting for a tick that we can send our signal off on. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to send our new signal. So that's what this is going to do. This is a 1-tick delay. It should be connected. You're connected to there, you're connected there to there. Okay. For red's less than 0, output a single red. It's greater than 0. Okay, yep. So yeah, that's how this works. So we're checking for two conditions, because we're checking the very tick that this went from 1 to 0, or 1 to a number less than 1. So what we'll do is we first wait a tick, and we check if we're greater than 0, then we'll output 1. So this is checking on the previous tick, because it's got the 1-tick delay. On the previous tick was this 1. This one's checking on this very tick, because it doesn't have the delay. Is this less than or equal to 0? And then we check if both of these are true. So where we used to grade it was the red value greater than 0 on the last tick, and on this tick, is it less than or equal to 0? If yes, it's time to send off our signal. We have a 2-tick delay, and then that goes to the normal sending of a signal. So now I'll show you how this works in a second, but this should mean, yep, that works perfectly fine. But what I'm going to do, and this is one of the reasons why I'm on this demo world, is just so that I can slow the game down by a bunch. Let's go 1/10 speed. So what we're going to do, we're going to send this command, and you'll see the sending command light will light up once. This light here should light up to say that we've successfully sent the message. This light here should not be lit up at that very same tick, and which will mean that this light will not turn green. That will turn the first counter light on, and then these lights will light up telling us that we're about to send the command again. Then it'll send it again for the second time. All the lights will be the same, but this one will light up because our counter will be 2. That will turn this light over here on red, because that will be telling us, okay, we've successfully sent our message, and it will reset this memory cell. So there's that light, first counter and second counter, and we reset. And yeah, even at 1/10 speed, it's really quick to go through. So I'll just do it again. And that has sent the message down to this memory cell down here. So actually, if I reset it like I just did, and I send it off, you'll notice we're trying to send iron ore is 129, and it has an iron ore value of 129. Now, this combinator here can act like a second station, and it's sending off an iron ore signal of only 1, which means that obviously this station is not going to be less than half of the total value on the red line, because the station with the lowest value is going to be 1. So if we turn that on, that means our shared line is now sending an iron ore signal. And so now when we send it, you'll see that this green light here does not turn off because there's something else on this line. This red light will turn on telling us, okay, we're waiting for a signal where it's free. Because we've only got 1 station and 1 iron ore, this thing will say, oh, we're free right now because, you know, this passes our condition that the number of stations we have equals the number of unique signals we have. So it will try to send it again, but of course, because this is being held on, it will just keep failing. And once this turns off, you'll notice the light turns on, there's our first state, there's our second state, and we're done, we reset. So this will just basically keep looping, waiting for it to be free. In fact, if I set that to 2, that should mean that this will just, that should have been waiting. I haven't actually tested it with a value greater than 1. Okay, it looks like, I think the condition here is slightly off, so I have to fix up the timing on this circuit here. That's okay, I can do that. And I'll show you how that gets fixed. But the last thing we need to look at, and this will end this episode basically, is how this condition down here works. So we know we've we only know that we've successfully sent our message across when, you know, this condition holds true. The fact that on the red line only our item wasn't changed. However, this can't know that. So if we go back here, we turn these 3 on. Here we go. Oop, turn that off. So in this state, right, our iron and our copper ore are both a value, and we know 3 stations are sending a value. Now our copper station would know that it is fine, its value went through unchanged. And both our iron mines would know, okay, my value was changed. And one of them would, this one up here with the 16 would send it again, and this one would wait till it's got a free time to send it. So, our copper mine can know that it was sent through fine. But how do we, looking at only these signals, know that the copper mine was the one that was valid, and not the iron ore mine was the one that was valid? Say we had, you know, this set up here. If I switch these two across, we'll see now we've got the same 3 signals basically. We've got a copper signal, an iron signal, and 3 trains. But this time it's the copper signal that's wrong and the iron signal that's correct. So the way that our system verifies which one was correct is, regardless of which path it goes through here, well, the 2 short paths I should say. So here we go. If this one changes, if this one is correct and so it gets sent back on this tick, or if this one's correct so it gets sent back here, the circuit is set up so that they take the exact same amount of time to go from a send to this magenta arrow here or to this magenta arrow here. They both take the same amount of time. And that means that we know how long it's going to take to send two signals from the same station that are both successful. And so what this circuit does down here is it checks, okay, we know it takes a station, say 8 ticks to send a signal off and then possibly send it again. So is the signal we got and the one we got 8 ticks ago the exact same for any of our items? If they're the exact same, then that means one station sent off that signal twice, and so we're good to go. If they're different, then that means that the set of stations that sent off the first signal is different to the set of stations that sent off the second signal. And that should hopefully work fine. And so the way we do this is we basically have a 1 tick delay on all our signals, and we get rid of the train at station signal because that's not useful for anything but counting. And this part doesn't have to count about that, it's just caring if one signal is the same. Then it goes into this really long delay, it's a 8 tick delay, which does a little bit of changing of the values at the very end, but otherwise, these are all exactly 6 tick delay. We then subtract 1 from our value and we negate it. Now that means that if we're getting the same value, say we're getting 100, at this point it would be 99, then negative 99 coming out of here. And so this will check if any of them are not equal to 1. So that is, if we got 100 twice, that would be equal to 1 here, because it would be equal to 100 on the red and negative 99 on the green. So this is telling us which signals can we not trust, because every signal that's not 1 we can't trust. Then we multiply those signals we can't trust by minus 2 billion, or 2000 million depending on if you're doing short or long numbers, minus 2 times 10 to the 9 to make it easier. And then that goes into this decider combinator, which, because this is just a tick delay, we can actually grab the 2 tick delayed signal, and that's the same signal that we're checking here, because these two would have been checked at the same time, then these two, and so now these 1, and it's checking for everything that's greater than 0. So because this is my subtracting 2 billion from every single signal, the only signals greater than 0 are those that passed this check. Failed this check would be more correct. Only those that are equal to 1 fail it, and so they don't get subtracted. So everything that's greater than 0 is everything that was equal to 1, which means it's everything that was repeated, the exact same signal twice, 8 ticks away from each other. And they're the signals that we know are valid, because they're the signals that one station sent once, then again, and no other stations changed those values. And that just goes into our memory cell over here, which I can wipe when I need to. So if we go back to 1/10 of the speed, you notice this light will flash on just after the second signal was sent. It's pretty close actually to it. It should be, 1, 2, 3, basically a 4 tick delay. And that will tell us that we've done a write to our FIFO queue, which isn't actually a FIFO queue yet. But yeah, this is therefore the circuit we're going to have to use on each station. Now it looks pretty complex, but it is super simple to actually set up. It's easily blueprintable. We can just get rid of the stuff that isn't needed. And that's basically just the blueprint that we need. Get rid of those. And this would just connect to whatever is sending it off. So, we might have a thing saying, if we've got more than 12,000 iron ore, let it know that we can send iron ore here. And I undid the one I wanted. But it would have to do a bit more than that. But that's basically how that works. And that can just talk into here. Now the only thing we still need to talk about is what values are we actually sending to this FIFO queue. Now, if you remember, we've got our 6 lines. 4, 5, 6. Good enough. With the 1, no, that's 12 lines. There we go, much better. So we've got our 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. We've also got an output, which is 64. And so what we're going to do, because nothing will be 128, what we'll do is we'll get each station number and we'll multiply it by 128. So station number, multiply it by 128. Output it as I'm gonna have to think how to properly make this work, because this will be a changing signal. I did not think of that, because this will be whatever our station is telling us about. Okay, no, that's easy enough to do. So if we've got a station that needs to tell us about times destination output each. So if we've got a station that needs to tell us about iron ore, and it knows it needs to tell us about iron ore because of this one up here, it can just send us an iron ore signal of 1, which is what it needs to tell us about. Actually, let's do it like this. So you go through to there, you go through to there. For anything greater than 0, output it as 1. We need another one here, which just does that. We need to negate that value. Give this a 1 tick delay. Yep. Put these two together. You're going into there. You need a 2 tick delay to make you in time with everything else. And that should work fine. Okay, so we'll say this is station 15. Actually, we'll give it a much lower number because 15's past 1,000. Station 1. So we've got the 128 signal set, so we know. In fact, we can just put it up to no, it needs to be an arithmetic. Each thing divided by 128. Output each. Okay, good. And then each thing mod 128. That will get us both the signals we need to care about. Cool. So let's say we need iron ore. It's an output. So iron ore is 64. And we are train station number 5. So we get a signal of 641 for our iron ore. And when we divide it by 128, we get our station back. It's station 5. And when we mod it by 128, we get... We should be getting 64. Oh no, you're connected to the wrong spot. That actually needs a 3 tick delay. There we go. So it's actually 704. And we're getting told that the iron ore signal is 64. So if instead we were, needing iron ore, maybe at our furnace, and our furnace is furnace number 7, there's station 7, and we need 63. So that's how we can put this all together on one thing. And let's say we weren't just iron ore, let's say we were making red science packs. So on 12 we need gears, and on 3, 12, yep, that works fine. And on 3 we want copper plates. Over here we have 2 different signals. We have an iron gear signal and a copper plate signal, and they'll both be station 7, but they're different wagons, basically. Now that does lead to an issue of how do we send two unique signals from one station, and yeah, I'm still trying to work that out perfectly, how we will do that. It's probably just going to be a little modification to how the start here works, so that we send one signal at a time, and every time a signal is successfully sent, we know that it's sent, so we can take it off this list of things that we need to send. But yeah, that's the end of episode 19. Went on for a bit, but you know, it took me 2 hours, I think, to actually make this whole circuit, and there's still a little bit I have to fix up over with this part. But yeah, this will be moved on to our circuit, and the next episode we're going to be going through our FIFO queues, and that should be FIFO queues, basically this setup here. So our FIFO queues, can we send train to an outpost, and our memory bank. That should hopefully all only take one episode, and once that's done, our trains will be properly dynamic. And yeah, this should be a much faster circuit. While the other one was O n squared, I think this one's O n log n, because of how it works with the halving each time. I believe that makes it an O n log n, which is a massive amount faster. Yeah, so if we get our FIFO queues done next episode and our train sending, then the following episode we should be able to actually start doing some dynamic stuff with our furnaces. But yeah, this is Jack B1024 signing off. Have a good day.